Hello and welcome. On 29 June 2023, GST Network GSTN has come up with an advisory, and this is about introducing a new functionality called Return Compliance in Form DRC01B. Now this DRC01B has two parts, Part A and Part B. We are shortly going to discuss about this in detail. Now let us see the use of this functionality. If there is a difference in tax liability between your GSTR1, R1 or IFF invoice furnishing facility and your GSTR3B, R3B, and this difference exceeds a certain specified limit, then you can use this functionality to correct such mismatches. Now, what is this specified limit? Unfortunately, as of now, we do not know what is this limit. We'll have to wait and watch. For better understanding, let's consider a scenario. Let's say you have filed your R1 for any tax period and declared a taxable turnover of say 20 lakh. For the same tax period, let's say you have filed your R3B where you had considered a turnover of 2 lakh and paid tax accordingly. Now this is a clear mismatch. When it comes to correcting this mismatch, there could be two different possibilities. First one, if this difference is your actual liability, then you have to pay tax along with interest. The other is there is an error in the turnover that you have declared in your R1 which needs to be corrected. Now we know that in GST we don't have concept of revised return. So before introduction of this functionality, whenever such differences existed, GST department used to issue notices to taxpayers demanding tax along with interest. Now, if this difference was your actual liability, then you had no option except to pay tax along with interest. But if this was an error, then you had to reply to the proper officer specifying the reason for the difference, which was a time-consuming process. Now, using this functionality, you would now be able to correct such mismatches online on the GST portal itself. For this, you have three options. One is, if the difference is your actual liability, then you can pay tax along with interest. But if this is an error, you now have an option to explain the reason for difference. And the third option is you can do both. That is, you can partially pay tax and for the rest you can specify reason for the difference. With this basic understanding, let's now talk about DRC01B. We had just seen that this has two different parts, Part A and Part B. Part A is the intimation from the GST department whenever there is a difference in the tax liability, and this intimation can either be sent to you to your email ID or as an SMS. Alternatively, you have an option to view this intimation on the GST portal itself. We are shortly going to see how you can do that. Then Part B. Part B is the reply that you are required to give against this intimation. Now this reply can be payment of tax or specifying reason for difference, or you can do both. And there is a time limit within which you have to reply, and as of now this time limit is 7 days. If you don't reply within 7 days, then you would not be able to file your R1 or IFF for the next tax period. To put it differently, if you don't reply within 7 days, then your R1 or IFF functionality would be blocked. Let us now see how to use this functionality on the GST portal. Once you log into the GST portal, click Services, Returns, Return Compliance, click View. Here you have three options. First one, reference number. If you have reference number, then you can enter reference number and click search. If you do not have this reference number, then next option is return period. Here you need to select financial year and period of return and click search. Then the last option is status. Here you can select the appropriate status and click search to view the intimation. Here is the format of the intimation DRC01B, and this is Part A, that is intimation from the GST department. Now to download this intimation, you can click download DRC01B Part A, and here is the system generated form. Now Part B. If the difference is your actual liability, then you have to select the first option, to pay tax. If you have already paid the tax, then you need to enter ARN of the Challan DRC03 and click validate. The details of the challan would appear on screen. But if you are yet to make the payment, then you can select the option, click here for DRC03. Once you make the payment, you can enter ARN of DRC03 and click validate. Let's now talk about the second option. If the difference is not your actual liability, then you can select the second option, to explain the reason for difference. Here you have 5 different options. You may select the appropriate option and explain the reason. Once you do that, you need to give your consent, select your name, enter place and click save. To download draft DRC01B that you have just filled, you can click download DRC01B. Click file GST DRC01B to file this form. Click proceed. Here you have 2 options. One is to file it with e-verification code. The other one is to use DSC. Select the appropriate option. Enter the OTP and click verify. On successful filing of this form, you would get a confirmation. To view the status of this form that you have just submitted, you can select status option. Select completed and click search. Select the form. Here is the form that we have just filled. To download final version of DRC01B, click download DRC01B. Here is the final version of the DRC01B. Before we wrap up, there are 2 things that are worth noting. First, return frequency. If you have opted for QRMP, that is quarterly returns with monthly payment, that is you file your GST returns once in a quarter, then whenever there is a difference in tax liability, this intimation would be sent to you once in a quarter and you are required to reply on a quarterly basis. But if you are a monthly filer, then this has to be done once in a month. Second, if you don't reply to this intimation within 7 days, then we had just seen that your R1 or IFF functionality would be blocked. Now, as soon as you reply to this intimation, R1 or IFF functionality would get instantly unblocked, so there's no waiting here. But in the FAQ, it is also stated that if this is not happening, then you need to log out and then log in after few minutes to see if your R1 or IFF functionality is active on the portal. This is all I have for you today. Hope the video was informative. Thank you for watching.